Today, I hope to change the lives of almost 30 people. Change is difficult. Change requires work. Change requires sacrifice. There are two more people in this room I'm hoping to convince that they need change. In the typical framework of change management, it's usually something that's within a company. You're changing direction, you might be doing something completely different. And you've got to communicate that message. Sometimes the message is very difficult and requires a somber tone. Sometimes it's uplifting because you're getting people excited about something. So hopefully people will be excited about what I'm proposed to them today. I think the thing that makes me love Toastmasters so much is what it's done for me in the 3 years that I have been here. I've given speeches about Batman versus Joker. I've given speeches about special economics zones. But the speech that I love the most, the one when someone asks me, what's the speech that you think about the most, is the one I gave about 6 months ago when I thought about what I wanted to tell my daughter after 18 years, what she meant to me up to that point. And I came here, and many of you remember that speech. It was deeply heartfelt. I made a picture album. I also made a daddy-daughter album back in the 80s. We call that a mixtape, right? And the day, but what you don't know after that speech is exactly what happened. We were having dinner, my parents on one side of the table. My daughter comes in a few minutes late, pretty typical of her. Her eyes are all red and kind of watery. And she sits down at the table. I had already started the daddy-daughter album in the background, so it was kind of echoing through the house. She just sits down with the rest of us and she cuts into her first piece and said, well, I really like this song. And the first choke in my neck. I look at my wife. And then the next song comes on and she goes, another great song. I love this one too. And I couldn't hold it back. The tears started to just weep from my eyes. Not a smattering, but a lot. I looked at my wife, swallowing as hard as I could, and back at my daughter, who's cutting into the next piece ferociously, still with some tears in her own eyes from saying goodbye to some friends. And I said, that's because I made it for you. And she looks up, looks at me, turns back, and immediately sobs into her hands. And for the next 10-15 minutes, I did exactly what I said I wanted to do, was to tell her what a gift she was to me and how important she was to me in my life. Now, I don't know what it is that's going to draw you into Toastmasters, but if I ever let that moment pass and didn't do what I intended to do in that moment, I would never forgiven myself. And for that, if that's the only reason to join Toastmasters, that was mine. So today, I'd like to talk about what Toastmasters is. I'd like to talk about the benefits of Toastmasters. There's a program called the Pathways Program, and we also dig into mentorship. And then just to ponder why else we might choose to be part of Toastmasters. First, I want you to know this is a humble experience or humbling experience. You're going to get up here sometimes and you're just not going to know what to say. And as Sir George Jessel says, the human brain starts working the moment you are born, and it never stops until you stand up to speak in public. Very good advice. And so if you don't feel like that when you get up here the first few times, wow, I really envy you. Toastmasters by the numbers. By joining Toastmasters today, you'll join a legacy of 4 million people that this club has served. It's been around for almost 100 years. Today, we have over 280,000 members in 144 countries, over 14,700 clubs, and an average of 22 members. This is all by volunteer, and it has perpetuated for a century. How incredible is that? This is a great group. I hope you'll join. Given the amount of time here, I will show this video later, but I won't show it here. And it's a 5-minute video about what Toastmasters meetings look like. Zach and Carol, you're getting this live, so you don't need me to play that for you. And we'll get into the benefits a bit. Obviously, there's a lot of tools that are used within the club, and the tools supply the benefits that you see up here on screen. This is to improve your speaking skills. Bar none, number one, absolutely. But what happens also in the club is that you gain some additional organizational skills. And of course, if you choose to show up and put in more than the time and the effort, you're also developing leadership skills. You're networking with people who are in your community and who will quickly become good friends with you. Why? Because you stand up here uncomfortably week after week, and they see that in you and you see that in them. That's a very, very vulnerable position to be in. And so you become friends very quickly. You're practicing writing speeches and you're presenting, you're maximizing your full potential. And that is really what I want to hit hard before we end this speech. Unlimited personal growth, gaining a competitive advantage in your workplace, and you're building self-confidence and awareness. In my introduction later today, we'll talk a little bit about what I have done outside of Toastmasters for the past 3 years. And when I hear it, I'm a little bit excited and I'm impressed by the courage that I've had to step forward into things that I never would have done before. So I hope they hear that as well. Back to the humility part. Every speaker has a mouth, an arrangement rather neat. Sometimes it's filled with wisdom, sometimes it's filled with feet. F.P. Jones. We talked at the beginning about this idea of pathways. There's actually 11 different paths. You can do everything from dynamic leadership to effective coaching, persuasive influence, or mine. The one that when you take that quiz online, which you will today, right, Zach and Carol? It's called visionary communication. And this is about being able to communicate change, being able to speak to organizations, that kind of thing. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a list of just a few of the many elective projects that you can take part in. This includes creating visual aids, knowing your sense of humor, leadership style, using descriptive language. Several weeks ago, I had to deal with a disruptive audience as a project. It was a heck of a lot of fun. I found out what I was made of. There are always 3 speeches for everyone that you actually gave. The one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave when you sit back down. That's Dale Carnegie, and he is the originator of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I believe there's a speaking program that some people have taken, right? An excellent speaking program. This incredibly diligent guy says you need to learn how to speak and speak well. Inside my path, the visionary communication path, you'll see 5 levels: mastering fundamentals, learning your style, increasing knowledge, building skills, demonstrating expertise. And again, you've got these elective projects on the right-hand side. And each level you have to do, as you can see, level 1. If you're speaking for the first time, it's called an icebreaker. It's 4 to 6 minutes. You'll come up and you'll talk about maybe your whole life. Maybe you'll just focus on just one thing that's interesting, makes you you, and tells the room exactly who you are. Writing a speech with purpose, introducing body language, evaluation and feedback. So there's a lot of great, very fundamental things. And as you get further up into pathways, it becomes a bit more challenging. Like level 4 or 5, you can start a podcast, for example. You can build a social media presence. And so those are actual real world things that can get you to step out of your comfort zone and see what you're made of. And heck, maybe even show up on the map for some people. The cleverest of all is the man who calls himself a fool at least once a month. I like to do it once a week, so that's why. And this is by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment, the Idiot. Amazing author. I didn't mention mentorship. We have begun a very diligent mentorship program this year, thanks to the commitment of a number of people in this room. And this is fantastic. I think this does a number of things for the club. One is it allows people to have a one-on-one relationship with someone and really focus on the things they want to, and to be able to maybe share some of those anxieties and maybe some of those goals. It also doesn't put all the pressure on our valuable vice president for education or our vice president for membership. And it helps to retain and continue to grow the club. And the mentor becomes the mentee and becomes the mentor, right? So we can see how this perpetuates. And you get that leadership aspect and that organization aspect. Honing your communication skills is an easy way to become worth 50% more than you are now. This is your why. Whatever it is that you're doing today, whoever you are now, what is it that Toastmasters might help you to unleash within your own personal professional life? I still remember when my daughter placed her pinky into my hand the moment she was born. I was locked in forever. There are other things in my life. Maybe there are projects at work. Maybe there are roles that you're a little bit nervous about stepping forward for because you're concerned that you're not ready. Maybe there's a movement that you want to be part of, but you don't know how to speak up. There's a message deep within inside you in any number of ways. And I'm suggesting you step up and you begin that moment of change. Toastmasters in one line. It's a place you come to get rid of your fear of judgment so that you can finally meet the person you were meant to be. Thank you.